a number of people that feel that they have low dream recall or have low dream recall assume that they don't dream because they can't recall.
So welcome to the Dream World podcast. I'm excited to have you. Today I'm joined by Andrusa Lawson. He's a dream worker, storyteller, creative. A lot of his work is focused on dream sharing and how traditions revolving dreams can help people whose voices have been silenced. So I went to one of your workshops in the Ralda conference in the Netherlands, and then I saw your presentation when it was online on dream cartography. I really enjoyed that one, and I want to talk, about all these topics and all the things you do. But I want to hear it from you first. Like, what's your story, and like, how did you get interested in dreams?
hmm Okay, my story. So I wouldn't say that there's kind of like a real kind of linear line of events that led to an interest in dreams. When people ask me and my family about our relationship to dreams, we always just kind of uh, recount that we come from a family of dreamers. Um, we've had shared experiences between the five of us and between my parents, and there's a long history of what some might call synchronicities or coincidence, but of shared space and archetypes and things of that nature showing up in our dream space. And as we were growing up in the inner city, Washington, D.C. and Baltimore, a lot of the tools that we use to kind of cope with the different complex traumas of being people of color, in the inner city, were related to dreams. Obviously, we had some other things that we were doing as well, but the idea was that, you know, um, in the beginning of the day, it was very common for us that we had shared dreaming experiences for us to come together and to kind of cross-reference and share with each other. And it seemed to allow us to build a more complete understanding and picture of what each of us may have been getting fragments of individually. So when I got connected up with IASD by the powers that be, I'll kind of leave it at that. When I got connected up to IASD, the International Association for the Study of Dreams, um, one of the things that really kind of stood out, or at least that people that I've kind of connected with were telling me was that, the level of lucidity, the frequency of dreams, you know, born from kind of the hypervigilance of growing up the way that we grew up. And my high level of dream recall is not actually common. I had, we didn't have the context. It was, it's just always been part of our family, part of our culture. So just the idea that, that, you know, we were at least presenting in a way that seemed to draw some attention and seemed to have some value to other dream workers who had been, working in the field in various capacities. Things started to click. I don't know if that's exactly what you're asking for, but that's what it is.
Yeah, I'm just asking for, whatever's on your heart and whatever, comes to mind when the question pops up. It's really cool that you are so connected with your family in that dream realm. I think I wish there was more studies on, dream recall or lucidity and, genetic predisposition. I'm also the one in my family to kind of encourage everybody to listen to their dreams. So that's really cool that you guys had that as a tool and a way to connect. So what is your main work around now? Do you have any projects, or I know you wrote a couple books. It's like, what's your passion within this field?
So I I haven't written any books yet. Well, actually, that's a lie. I've written books. I just haven't shown them to anybody to be
That
published
counts.
yet. So so yeah. So I guess if I were to kind of sum up where my real kind of passion and focus is, it's around dream recall, lucidity, particularly shadow work. Integrating those fragmented parts of, our day, our emotion, our psyche in such a way where we experience some level of catharsis, and then we're able to take that energy that we were dissociating and put it back into our lives in a way that allows us to be productive. So I'm really interested in shadow work in that way. And I would say that right now, my primary focus is on what I gave it my presentation on, that dream cartography. I have a number of projects and research projects that are surrounding this entire program that I've that I have laid out, with the development of that application, being just one tier in a multi-stepped kind of pathway to give my bit of contribution to the dreamwork community. So I'm interested in dreams as a means of accessibility. And what I mean by that is that people and from different socioeconomic backgrounds a lot of times lack access to some of the different disciplines that might allow them to feel as though they're kind of expanding themselves as individuals, really kind of caught up in our basic needs of survival. And a lot of these practices that may be seen as expansive, or to help people with their awareness or to grow, there really is a barrier to entry when you can't afford your groceries and you don't know if you can keep your lights on. There's no way you're going to make it to Tibet and sit with a dream yogi. So the idea is that even though there are other avenues into this extrasensory experience, this direct connection with these more subtle dimensions of our reality, a lot of times they get sensationalized. It's associated with things like psychedelics and things like that. But dreaming is something that we all do. We all have access to it. We're all kind of innately gifted and blessed in that way. And we have just been kind of moved in such a way where we deprioritize it through our lives, and we lose access to this really kind of connective, this connective tissue, because it's something that all of us have in common, not just with ourselves, but with animals and things like that. So I'm interested in what it would take to map the collective unconscious. I believe that, or even the subconscious, to take kind of a snapshot of what that will look like. And I believe that dreaming is the most versatile, potentially appropriate, and accessible tool. And accessibility is just really big for me because, in order to get a more complete picture of who we are as human beings, the data has to be more representative of, a diverse set of demographics. And, empirically, just as the data is now, that's not the case. It's not the case.
Yeah, very much so. I've noticed that as well, I think it's so important to bring more diverse, not just voices, to the conversation, but in the data, in the research. So like you were mentioning, a lot of people live in survival mode. Maybe they have a lack of sleep, or, they don't even a lot of times remember dreams. It starts with a recall. If you have trauma, or you're stressed, or you don't have time to focus on dreams, you may not even know that you dream at all. So what are some ways that people can connect to that part of themselves and join the conversation, and study that part of themselves, do the shadow work,
Mhm.
in a balanced way, in a way that supports them instead of just adds more stress?
Yeah, I would say the first thing to do is just kind of we have to get back to that place of like childlike curiosity. We have to suspend that disbelief, like just the statement you made, where which I think is absolutely true, where um people a number of people that feel that they have low dream recall, or have low dream recall, assume that they don't dream because they can't recall. Um, and when when we hold that as truth, that belief, then what happens is we kind of lock ourselves down, and we create less opportunities for recall. So um, there's there are some, I guess, exercises, or just like thought exercises that I usually do with people that are curious about dream work, maybe just getting into it, and or have the issue of not having very high dream recall. And and part of it is just to have them start to write and journal. Writing and journaling is really central to a lot of awareness practices. But I have them write and journal as though they've had the dream, right? Just accepting, even if the only thing that they put down on the paper each morning is accepting that they know that they have had a dream, just from a mechanical a mechanical perspective. Just as human beings, you sleep, then you dream, you go through those cycles, and so doing some physical practice that reinforces that, even though they're not remembering what it is, that they're changing that belief of, if I can't remember what it is, it must not be happening. It's happening, I just can't remember. And generally, if people kind of move through just that thought exercise with consistency, I usually kind of get the call or the email that says, "Oh, I remembered one."
The best
you
feeling.
know,
I
uh,
love that.
yeah, yeah, I think it's great. And I believe that there's an innate intelligence in the dreaming, um, and that when we put ourselves in a position where we actively show that we're re-engaging with the dream, because really it's a relationship that we've neglected. And when you're reestablishing trust, with that part of yourself, and potentially with information that is maybe non-local or very, very subtle, um, sometimes we have to extend the olive branch first.
Yeah, I love that. And, I also agree with you. I think everybody has these abilities. It's not always easy to tap into that part of ourselves. But once you get the ball rolling, you open up that relationship with our dreaming mind. And how do you think that, like, doing this type of work on an individual level, like, how does that ripple out into society? With everything going on in the world and just in general, humanity, do you think it's more beneficial and it has that effect?
Well, I would say, okay, so I guess we're getting into an area where I have a bit of tension right now, because I understand the idea and the principle that on an individual level, if we're doing our work, um, there's this residual effect that kind of spreads via association. Um, but there's this part of me that wonders about whether or not just doing that individual work is enough. Whether or not there is a need for us to really take this practice, this passion that we all have surrounding dream work, and say, okay, it's time for us to start thinking about dreaming collectively. Where it's time to start thinking about how all of these things weave together in such a way where we have a larger impact. There's just, like, dream work and shadow work and mindfulness practices, they're like contemplative, right? Like, we're like, it's a lot of stopping, thinking, feeling through it, right? And the speed at which um other volatile vectors of thought and emotion um expand in our world today, uh I'm not sure if it's enough to simply take it slow and do it for yourself anymore.
Yeah, that's a good point, and I ask myself these things all the time, which is why I bring it up. So, what does collective dreaming mean, like, to you?
I think that it's important for me to establish that, I guess, my relationship with the dreaming is somewhat uncommon compared to some of the mainstream dream workers. I intentionally, throughout my practice, have have worked to kind of blur the line between my dreaming and my waking experience. Um, and so when I consider um, some of the impacts of dream work and some of the impacts of adjusting my worldview and perspective to 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 move through this lens of almost mystical relation with the dreaming. um the meaning is not necessarily separate from the actions that we do when we're awake as well. um a lot of dream work in and of itself is done when we're awake. We dream obviously when we're sleeping. Depending on your level of lucidity and some of the practices you have, maybe you become engaged and aware in your dreaming. But dream work happens when you're awake. The journaling, the recall, the meaning making, and all of those things. A lot of that happens when we're awake. So when I think about dreaming collectively and what that means to me, um, it it is indicative of us living collectively. Um, and I think that we're in a very difficult space with that right now with our current political climate and you know the global climate, so to speak, um, with moving towards living collectively and thinking and feeling and acting collectively. I think that we're um, a bit more fractured than maybe we were a few years ago.
Yeah, thank you for that. Definitely, it's tough when not the whole world's not on the same page. So I wanted to kind of segue that into your cartography work, mapping your own dream world. It was funny because right around that time that I saw your presentation, there was also some like mainstream trends online about people talking about their different dreamscapes and what it looks like for them, and a lot of similarities, online about that. So, what was that process like for you? How did you begin to notice what types of environments show up in your dreams? And do you feel like it's something that other people relate to?
I guess the first thing would be that uh, what I've found so far is that um, a number of people that I've engaged with in this kind of dream work niche in the dream work community um, actually are a little less concerned about location and more concerned with narrative, with symbolism and characters and interpretation. Um, I became very very interested or concerned with location when my dreaming practice really kind of expanded for me. And just with the level of lucidity that I have, and multiple I recall at least 2 to 3 dreams a night. um I would say at least uh at least 3 to 4 times a week. I'm an active dreamer. I understand that I'm dreaming. I become lucid. And I got into and I have been studying um Peruvian shamanism and Tibetan dream yoga. And I started to recognize some patterns and some associations that, by virtue of becoming lucid, becoming aware, and remaining calm enough not to pop the dream bubble, not to get too so excited that I wake myself up, that uh, when I was in certain dreamscapes or dream spaces and engaging with certain narratives, that the way that I chose to respond to those narratives would often lead to a set of events that would lead me to another dreamscape. And when I realized that, um, for me, that jump between this dreamscape A or dreamscape B based on my decisions, and this is an oversimplification, was something replicable for me, right? So here I am in my dream. Let me, come into my awareness. Here is this inflection point, and if I behave in this certain way, here's the next space that I generally move to in this narrative. Um, what came to mind was what what is the feasibility of navigating from dreamscape to dreamscape if I'm in a space where I'm aware and where I have an understanding of what I will encounter, or that expectation of what I could encounter in those spaces, which in its own way kind of cements the symbolism in the space, right? Kind of collapses that quantum waveform. It's less potential, and it becomes more structured. Um, but maybe that's the cost of being able to move from one node or one space in the dream to another, in search of experiences that I'm seeking. So in in a lot of our dreams, or I know we've all had these experiences where we have certain dreams where we had visitation from ancestors, or we feel catharsis and rejuvenated afterwards, or maybe we encounter something that we feel is dark, and something that we need to move through. My my assumption, my thesis was, or my hypothesis was, what if I really need a night of catharsis? And I know where I am in this tapestry of associations between dream spaces, and I can navigate to the space where I'm most likely to have a cathartic experience. I'm most likely to shapeshift into an animal. I am most likely to have a visitation from, an ancestor or some type of compassionate embodiment that I can posit a question to. And wouldn't that have an innate value to it?
That's really cool. So do you have any specific ways that you change the dreamscape if you're trying to navigate to a different section of that elaborate tapestry?
Okay. So the idea of ways that I would change the dreamscape, I think kind of implies a level of control that I am I am less of an advocate for in dream work. Uh and a lot of kind of the training of different dream works that I've encountered, there seems to be this push towards, how do I become more in control? How do I do the thing that I want to do? I want to fly in a dream. I want to do A, B, and C. And I have encountered the dreaming as a cooperative experience, a dialogue, an interaction between um, an intelligent presence. And so I don't I avoid changing changing the dream, or trying to actively incite change. Um I would say that it's more about, while being in a conscious space and a receptive space, uh behaving or making choices or directing my perception in a way that aligns my energy with a specific outcome. Um, and then allowing the dream to take me somewhere close, right? So I would say too that because of the amorphous nature of dreaming, even though the space and the locations that I move between may be recognizable, it's always fresh and it's always new, right? And I feel that uh, a forcing or expecting a change sometimes limits the possibility and the richness of the experience.
Yeah, definitely. I love that perspective. So would you say you're more of like an observer and kind of just go with the flow of the dream versus, having that lucid control?
I would say that there are spaces and places for lucid control. I have had and um, understand that I can have the ability when I am moving through this navigation process in a lucid way to completely rearrange, dismantle, or construct within the space of the dream. Um, but it feels very rude because because we're having a conversation, and I don't I don't want to step on anybody's toes. I'm speaking about the dream right now. I don't want to step on anybody's toes, and I don't want to speak over you. And if you are making a point and you're using the language that is most appropriate to you, who am I to correct those words if I understand that meaning? Um, that being said, there are some spaces and some places where sometimes the desired outcome in the dream or that sought after experience is the ability to craft, dismantle, disrupt. And there are specific scapes that that I recognize as places where that type of dismantling is appropriate.
I love that. That's a deep respect for the dream space that I really appreciate as well. So I think that's a really good lesson for people. Do you have any like specific things you like to use your lucid dreams for, or certain things that you kind of plan for during the waking state?
So I guess I would answer that question by just highlighting some of the sought after experiences that I sometimes try to navigate to in my dreams. Um, so one thing that is really, really big for me, and I know that a lot, and that's an assumption, but I feel like a lot of people would think, maybe like ancestral visitation and things like that. But for me, it's actually shapeshifting that is the most rich experience for me. The I think that there's I think it's a Buddhist proverb, um, and maybe I might be misspeaking, but it's just the idea that there's value to taking a look at the world from the peak of the mountain, even if you can't stay there for long, right? Um, because it's cold and it's frigid and you can't breathe or whatever the situation is. The point is that by virtue of understanding, by getting up above, the tree canopy and being at that peak position to understand that there's more than what you see in your daily life. Um, it enriches you. It allows you to uh, to maybe allow yourself to dream about more than where you are right now. And the richest experience of that is the experience of taking the shape of another animal. Just because uh, when I have dreams, when I shapeshift into a bear, when I'm a bear, or I'm an eel, or I'm a snake, I can't be a human if I'm going to be a snake. And there's merit just to slithering on my belly and smelling with my tongue, just by virtue of really letting go of all of my assumptions of how, I would perceive and engage with this world in a human form where I'm bipedal. Um, when I come back from those dreaming experiences, um, I feel a very deep empathy. um, it's usually also very cathartic. Um, sometimes it brings me to tears. And I mean, like any and every experience outside of this human form, I think that human beings innately are kind of shapeshifters, at least, um, you know, spiritually and mentally, like where I feel like wouldn't be too far of a jump to say that we are creatures that dream about being something different. We dream about different jobs or different spaces or different places or different people. And, I'm not sure if a deer ever dreams about being a bear. I'm not going to put it past them, but I know that there's something in us that a richness and a curiosity for contemplating those experiences. And what better vehicle, and this is that whole idea of accessibility, what better vehicle to explore those questions and those sensations than in the dreaming where, all of your senses can be engaged. So, yeah, that's usually what I'm looking for in a dream. I don't know if that was the right question, but that's
Yeah,
the right answer. Right?
definitely. Yeah, there's no wrong answers here. That's really cool. I love animals in general and then connecting to, the different essences of all the things on earth, that co-create this space we live in. So that's really cool. Um, So, what about in contrast to cool, powerful, lucid dreams? What about like mundane day to day dreams? How do you connect with those? Because like you said, a lot of people aren't super powerful lucid dreamers like that.
Okay. Well, so I'm gonna have to take us a step back again. So, I guess this goes back to my purview, when it comes to how I engage with my dreaming. I was asked a similar question in an interview last year. Um, I was asked to share prior to the interview a number of or a very powerful or substantial dream that we could talk about. And I think my response, I think they published it in one of the dream journals or whatever. But it was just like, I don't make that distinction. Like every experience, every dream experience, anything that you recall, if it's just a light, a color, a sensation, you know, um, it is just as potent and powerful and meaningful as, you know, constructing a universe. Um, and I believe that really the the draw to kind of make the distinction or to look for these moments of kind of sensational experience is is part of that kind of Euro-Western valuation of life. Like something has to be, you know, big or powerful or bright or beautiful or super super dark. Whatever it is, it has to be more in order to have value. But um, you know, I I understand that there is meaning in the dreaming, in every dream, before I go and start to assign my labels to it and try to interpret it. It has value before I try to wrap my monkey brain around it. So um I guess I'm not sure, again, I'm not sure if that answers the question, but just that idea of like, you know, nothing's mundane. Nothing's mundane for me.
I love that. Yes, that's so true. I think all our dreams are important too and deserve, the same level of respect and, awe. So I kind of take a similar perspective. I would love to hear the dream you mentioned, or, if you want to share whatever dream comes to mind that was an important or a standout one for you.
I guess a relatively unimportant dream was revisiting this dreamscape where the world is kind of covered in turbulent dark waters. Um, and there was a tower in this dream, and I was climbing into the tower from the water and realizing that the space that I was climbing was actually like the tallest room in the tower. But I didn't understand that the rest of it was under the water because whatever the storm is in this particular dreamscape is just something primal, something old. And I went into this space. I shared this with my dream group. I have a regular dream group that I've been meeting with for a couple of years now on Thursdays. Um, but I came into the top of this tower, and in the water that was actually in the tower, there was like almost like a kraken, tentacles that were obscured and you couldn't really see, its face or whatever it was. And the rest of my brothers and sisters were also climbing into the tower around the same time. And as like lightning is striking the tower and the rain is just pelting and everything is chaos, and these tentacles are reaching up trying to grab us and pull us down into the water, and we're hanging on to these ropes and kind of swinging because we're getting buffeted back and forth. We all just start laughing because it's like, oh, it's the first time we've been together in the same place in a good long time. And so it was it was just the most terrible awful experience you would expect. But we were just happy to see each other. A not so important dream.
That sounds awesome. So vivid, and it sounds very wholesome. I love the balance of like the fear, but the happiness too, to be around people you love. That's interesting how dreams can do that. That's cool. Thank you for sharing that. How does modern culture, do you think that we lack a healthier relationship with our dreams and waking life and the shadow? Like, um, do you feel like generally the world needs more dream work, I guess?
The world needs more stuff. Yeah. I would say that the modern human generally is uncomfortable with self-analysis or evaluation or sitting still and reflecting. I think that it's easier for us to kind of stay in our lower chakras, so to speak, and kind of stay in our bodies and in some of those baser impulses, because life is hard and and the world's super crazy and everybody's hungry and a lot of people don't have homes. So it's easier. It maybe easier is oversimplification. It may even just be necessary at this point right now for us to be the animals that we are. Because we're not having those basic needs met. We're in fight or flight, we're in survival mode, and again, how can you expect somebody to elevate when they're not having their needs met? I don't think that we have a healthy relationship with the dreaming because we're distracted. And I think that it would be very tone deaf or just short-sighted to think or to assume that that distraction is completely of our own making, right? Like that we want to be distracted, that, we don't want to expand, that we don't want to ask questions and and find meaning and relationship with others. I think that whenever this iteration of society and systems is at the moment, it feeds off of our apathy. So, and it wounds me deeply to consider that.
Yeah, I resonate with that as well. And sometimes I struggle to continue, doing the podcast and like just finding that inner motivation, but I do it anyways, even as much as I can. And one of the things that, motivates me to keep going is the importance of just, getting more diverse voices, and not just, racial and cultural, but like geographic, all, in every sense of the word, into dream work and into the research. So hopefully I'll be able to go down that path. But um, what are some ways that you think we can, invite, you know, BIPOC community and just in general more people to not just IASD, but to start
Um,
thinking about dream work?
I would say first, I guess let's talk about BIPOC, and we'll also kind of expand it to just like diverse demographics based on kind of region and location and things like that. I don't think that the current DreamWork landscape is ready, capable, or safe for people of color. I really don't. I'm not going to say believe it or not, but just I've encountered staunch resistance throughout my my career of trying to engage with the established dreamwork community. And I think that there's a natural and warranted hesitation in communities of color to divulge and to share into spaces that don't feel safe because the nature of the dreaming is sacred. Um, I also believe that in many communities of color, the same way I think it is like in many different regions around the world, there's a difficulty with really holding the dream in the regard that it deserves because of all the stress and the anxiety and um, not having needs met, right? So I think, it's not like I wouldn't say that like there's this larger community of people of color that are all like secretly like secretly communing and connecting very strong with their dreams. I think that like the way that the system is set up, that everywhere in every space, whether it's mainstream or these marginalized spaces, it is really, really tough to incorporate the type of time, care, energy, ritual that's needed to cultivate the relationship with the dream. And so I think we're all just kind of suffering from that. I think that, and I hope to kind of show this in some of my work, my research work, and eventually my thesis for well, I don't want to give away the baby with the bathtub water, whatever. The point is, um, the point is that I think that when it comes to research and it comes to gaps in the data based on like culture and race and things like that, a lot of times right now researchers are in the mind state that if the data is not there, then we need to find out a way to get into these demographics and collect that data. And what I'm finding is that the withholding of data, the withholding of sharing is a data point in and of itself that needs to be represented, that needs to be represented in tandem with the data that shows, these are the demographics that are sharing, these are their stories, but, we're not actually actively visualizing the reason for withholding as a valid data point. We're just leaving it as a gap because we don't have it yet. Um, and I think that it also speaks to, who has kind of like sovereignty or control over the information, the narrative, the data that is produced and compiled. There's a very well documented history of um, the work of people of color and other marginalized people being co-opted. Um, and there's just not enough concerted energy to try to repair though that lack of trust. And I think that we have to also consider, it's one of the things that I brought up in my presentation. A lot of people saw my presentation for IESD last year and, you know, were really interested in the dream mapping part of it. But for me, that was actually not the largest question there. The largest question there is it appropriate for us to be creating these type of tools, doing this type of dream work when people are not getting their needs met, when, diversity is under siege. Like, the idea that we're still here and, um, you know, diverting so much of our energy, attention, and capital into the dreaming. Not that it doesn't deserve, attention and resources. Um, I worry that that may be a little tone deaf as well, right? Um, and I don't think a lot of dream workers want to think about that right now. Um, Doing dream work uh, can feel very rich and rewarding, and wrestling with the idea that um, maybe we have to find ways of stepping back from some of the things that we think we should build or be doing, because there are other uses of our energy and our time um, that would also honor the human experience and the collective experience. Um, like I said before, you know, the dreaming kind of bleeds into my physical waking reality as well. You know, a lot of what we don't integrate during our day, a lot of our experiences, our anxieties, it shows up in our escapes. So sometimes, or a lot of times, the dream work happens when we're awake. What are we doing when we are awake to take the edge out of the dreaming, to take the nightmare out of the dreaming, to take the, to take to lower those moments of kind of hurt, pain, and loss. And it's not that uh, dreaming is not equipped for those type of emotions and sensations, but it's like it's all that we're feeding into our collective psyche right now. So I'm interested in what we can do while we're awake so that we can kind of take pressure off of that dreaming experience. I think that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. It makes complete sense. I think, we have the Western scientific view on dreams, which a lot of people think is like, the ultimate say, but there's so many perspectives and different ways to look at dreams and work with dreams. And so I think that they're all just as valid. And, I don't encourage people to try to fit into a space or framework that doesn't feel safe. I think creating communities and finding ways to work with your dreams and share dreams with others that does feel safe is important, whatever that looks like, to each person. So yeah, I'm curious also, what your work in terms of like your brand and what you do, where can people find you, that kind of stuff, and what is that about?
Nobody's ever gonna find me.
Well, yeah, I know your
Uh,
website, so I found you
yeah,
that way.
well, yeah, for the moment you did. Okay, I'm gonna share another dream with you. Is that
Okay,
okay?
great. I
I'll
would
be
love that.
brief.
Yeah.
I'll be brief with that.
No need. Take your
Um,
time.
so I was with my dream group, and I was sharing this dream with them. Um, and so in the dreaming, the the land is scarred. The world, as I understand it, is just black and ash, and the trees are just wailing, and uh, there are animals of all types um, that are coming together, and the smallest of them, the rabbits and the chipmunks and the squirrels, um, they begin to dig into the ash, into the earth, um, as the world is set ablaze, and everything starts to burn. And the larger animals, they pile over top of the smaller ones as their flesh crackles, and they're shielding them for as long as they can to buy time for them to dig down into the earth towards this one seed, this mote of light. And I realized the dreaming spoke to me, and when I use that word loosely, because a lot of times in the dreaming it's not like a big ominous voice, it's a knowing. You understand the context, and there was a choice to be made. whatever was happening, if those animals made it down to that seed, it would burn. And I had to choose whether or not, I'm gonna take this off. I had to choose whether or not those animals were going to make it down to what they thought was their salvation. And I chose to let the animals burn. And in my heart, I felt that if all we can do is preserve whatever that small moat is, and it has the opportunity at some point to grow out of the ash and the bones that were piled on top of it, then it was worth the sacrifice. So I bring that up, that particular dream. I bring that up to say that um I am not sure at this time in our human experience is the appropriate time for whatever that bit of grace is that is supposed to bless and spread and expand in this world from the type of dream work that I'm positing. And if I don't get to do this in my time, if I have to pile my body on top of that seed to keep it from burning, then I will fall away into obscurity. I don't, you are, you are my last stop for quite some time. Okay. I have a number of dream workers or people that have podcasts and things like that that have become somewhat familiar with my thoughts, my presentations and things like that, that have asked for me to you know, to do what we're doing here. And I feel like the badger in me um needs to go underground for quite some time. Uh, I plan on cementing uh, some of the research that I've been doing. You know, I just completed a year-long longitudinal study, um, and I have some other things kind of in the work. All these things are aimed at fleshing out this dreaming app, this dream cartography app, not as a product, right? Like a lot of dream workers that are considering building apps are like, you know, it's like dream journaling. How do we market it? How do we get this is an exploratory tool. It's for meaning making and visual association. Um, and so my goal is to um, continue some of this work that I'm doing underground for a while and to really remove myself from the larger dream work community for some time. Um, and then depending on where we are, where the world is, where this community is whether or not it'll be time for me to express it or contribute.
Yeah, well, first of all, let me say I appreciate you so much for coming on the podcast. That's an honor to me just to be able to get to know you and chat and, see what you're up to. I look forward to that research when it does come out or when you're at a place to share. But I guess that brings up one last question that I want to ask you, which is what does that future look like to you? I mean, you can be as positive or as cynical as you're feeling, but um, what does the appropriate time look like? Where do you see this all heading?
So there's some two important things I guess I want to get at here. Um, I think that it's not just for me a matter of appropriate time, it's a matter of appropriate space. I honestly don't see myself staying in the US to do this work. I've been, some of the academic circles that I run in, and some of the professors that I'm, speaking to as I'm in school and I'm doing my writing, my publishing, and things like that. Um, a lot of a lot of the academics that I surround myself with are not 100% sure if the United States is the place to be doing the type of work that we're doing, right? So, for me, maybe the timing is also the place as well. Um, and I need to be in a place physically where I feel that the expression of the work that I plan on doing um, is not going to be mislabeled or disappeared. There's a lot. I'm sorry. Just I hate to. I'm not going to get super political. I promise. I'm just saying that there's a lot of information that is disappearing. There, there are literally some things that I've cited in papers that I've written that I can't find a citation anymore because it's been disappeared from, from the government sites, from, and things of that sort. So, um, I need to be in a place where the work, uh, will be insulated and able to, um, exist beyond me, and where it's not necessarily going to be curtailed um, by people that don't want to have a discussion about diversity or equity or inclusion or race or gender. I don't know, or any of those things. So, um, more details to come, I guess.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I would love to stay up to date with your journey, when you do find that space, place, time, people, whatever it is. Because I think it's important. And I think people that listen to this episode, think deeply about it, beyond what they do and on a collective level and beyond. So, yeah, thank you for that. I will include all of your links and whatnot in the notes, so you don't have to repeat them unless you want to. But any closing thoughts?
Don't give up hope. Just don't give up hope just yet. Things aren't good, but they've never been great. Things have never been
True.
great, and it's all the work, you know. So let's just do the work.
Yeah, agreed. I'm there with you, and I appreciate you just coming on, sharing some of your energy and your dreams and a little bit about yourself. So, yeah, I really appreciate that, and hopefully we can stay in touch.